reduced by 20%.
That's still recharging. That spell isn't closer. I'm out of range. I need to get closer. It's too far away. I'm out of range. It's too far away. I'm out of range.
If you're at 50,000.
Legs, block.
The strongest classes moving into Season of Discovery. What are going to be some of the best builds, some of the best tanks or healers? What are some of the talents you're going to run or some of the runes you're actually going to be using? And does this game actually feel like classic World of Warcraft? Does it still have that magic that we all know and love when playing Classic WoW? Well, today we invited Hammerdance, a new WoW Classic creator focused on Season of Discovery, onto the podcast to discuss all of these things and quite literally, hopefully, all of your questions that you have for Season of Discovery. And I'm also working on full guides on how to get yourself prepared for Season of Discovery launch. But of course, before we even see the game, we don't know if anything is official. They might have some actual changes in the game, and we'll discuss that today. So hopefully you learned something about this new version of WoW Classic, and if you like the show or want us to discuss any other topics, of course, let me know in the comments. All right, guys, well, welcome back to the Classic Life podcast, where we go over everything classic in video gaming, mostly obviously World of Warcraft. Today with the announcements or the news on Season of Discovery, we're going to break down as much as we can moving into WoW Classic and Season of Discovery. And we are joined by a very special guest here, Hammerdance, who has been making a ton of content on Season of Discovery. Can you go and introduce yourself and welcome to the show?
What's up, guys? I'm Hammerdance. Yep, I decided to start getting my Warcraft channel off the ground with Season of Discovery, and it's working out. I really enjoy making the content. I think Season of Discovery is like a super cool thing that Blizzard is doing, and it's the perfect time to kind of jump in and learn all this stuff with everybody.
Yeah, you've been breaking down literally every single class, which I think is great for people that want to know all of the new loot, all of the new runes, what is going to look good on each of the classes, what are things that might not be necessarily as good on each of the classes. So there's a ton of things that's coming out, and there's going to be a lot of class reworks that are really changing the way we're going to experience Classic. So it's going to be pretty fun. Crix, how are you doing today, man?
I am doing great, brother. I'm excited to be back here doing this. I'm excited to hang out with Hammerdance. I've been watching his stuff for before he was even doing this stuff. And he did a lot of this hardcore, like he used to do the immersive ones where you just be relaxing playing the game. And that was, obviously the whole point of hardcore, in my opinion, was the peacefulness in the world. And then he popped out with these randomly, and I was really happy. When the first one I saw was this one right here, and I was like, oh, okay. And he just started spamming them, and I'm loving it, man. I am. Yeah, I can't complain. I'm excited for Seasons of Discovery. I'm very excited for it. I think a lot of people are excited for it. I just did not expect it at all. I think nobody did. Like, we were at BlizzCon, and the stars were sitting right next to me, Jordy and Showback and a bunch of other people, and we were expecting Classic Flow. We expected Kata, they said it. We expected retail expansion, they said it. And then we were like, expecting something with Classic. I don't know what it was, but we did not expect it. That was... Nobody expected this, I don't think. Like, at all. Nobody. We knew the name. Like, we found out that... Yeah, we found out the name a few days before. So we were kind of like, oh, discover something. It's going to be something new. And this is definitely new.
Oh, so you guys knew the name before?
Sarth knew the name. He got the email or something from somebody, and then it kind of just spread around.
And I did a good job. I didn't tell anybody.
You didn't even tell me. Someone else told me.
I didn't tell Jordy. I was in a car ride on the way to Blizzard, and I literally didn't. Jordy got so mad at me. I was like, I don't know, man. I don't think they were supposed to send it. And then there was a second email that was like, oh, by the way, we weren't supposed to say the name in that email, so don't say that to anyone else.
Yeah, so you can trust the Sarth with the knowledge. We'll just beg it out of him.
I was proud of myself. But I had some inklings. I knew what to expect. I knew we were going to get a new version of Classic World of Warcraft. I knew that we were going to have like reworks, class reworks, and I didn't know what extent. And I think the extent is much further than everybody really expected, and even more, way further initially when it was first announced than people kind of wanted. Until the deep dive. Like, even I was a little bit nervous until the deep dive and until I played it. And once I got to actually play the game, I was like, this is the sickest thing ever. This is so cool. So, like, the very first initial announcement was like worrying. You're like, are they going to do it okay? And I think they're going to do it right. But Hammerdance, what did you think of the initial announcement? Like, what were your thoughts on this all as we're leading into Season of Discovery?
Yeah, so I, like you guys, I was not expecting it at all. I was actually just eating lunch, watching it on my couch. And when they announced it and like said what it was, I had to stand up. I was like,
he was
what?
like, oh,
what
YouTube!
is this? Yeah. Yeah, and I personally, I right off the bat was excited. I was like, you know what, this is exactly like kind of what we need, because I have this theory that I'll share with you guys that like I have for the past like month. I was actually arguing with a friend about this, but I think that the best way for them to do a Classic Plus is seasonal, and the reason for that is because if they didn't do it seasonal and it was a permanent server that went on for like 3-4 years, kept going, in my opinion, it would just turn into like retail 2.0, because that old content would become irrelevant, which is like when you do seasonal content, right? Like maybe Classic Plus next year or the year after is different than Season of Discovery. It's still Classic Plus. It's different new content. You know what I mean? So that, like, I don't know. That's how I feel about it. I feel like this was like the best way to do something like this, because it keeps everything relevant, keeps everyone like playing at the same time together. Like, I don't know. What do you guys think about that theory?
I like it. I think that this Season of Discovery is like a beta for Classic Plus. I think we're going to go to BlizzCon next year and be sitting in those same seats, and they're going to be like, guys, you guys like Seasons. We did some changes. We're going to make it better. Here's Classic Plus.
I don't know if we'll get like a different Classic Plus. I know that's like a very like common thread going around the internet. I think this is like not necessarily a beta, but it's like testing out what we all like. And then if things are very, like if people get attached to different aspects of Season of Discovery, that can roll over into the next season. I think in general, I think their tendency right now is leaning towards seasonal, like you were saying. And I think it's like just thinking about the game in a seasonal aspect. So what is the next version? It's gonna have a different gimmick or a different thing, and so it's always this fresh take on the version of World of Warcraft Classic. I think time gating it or like level gating it is something that is amazing in the essence of we're getting a lot of new stuff, so having everybody just rush to level 60 and then figure it out is kind of gonna like be relatively overwhelming, and you also want to be able to test out all the different classes. So I think level gating it is really nice. We're gonna go straight up to 25 in like one play session, and then you'll know how good that class is, and you'll try out different ones. They're gonna have to do like a ton of balancing, because things are just like all over the place. But yeah. I think this seasonal is a really, really good way of doing it, and I think it's a lot better than the first season. I think Season of Mastery was something I wasn't super hyped about outside of our Road to Ragnaros hardcore run. This is something that's like new, and if we weren't gonna get like just a fresh, this is like what I think is kind of necessary. That video is just 720p. I streamed in 720.
That's background footage. So I'm just gonna play for me watching the background from the BFD raid that he did. We all did it, but Sarth was actually able to stream from there. So this is just his run. I'll bounce back and forth between his POV and like Guzu's and everyone else that was there doing it, just to have some background stuff.
Yeah, I was able to test this out for the very literally minutes after the live announce. We had to like run. I had to run to like from one end of BlizzCon to the other to get over there and set up to be able to test this out with like the devs that made it. So like Agran is in here, Tim Jones, Dara Diba, Morgan, like a lot of them are in it, and then Esvan, Guzu, and Sony wasn't with us.
Andy was.
Yeah, this is like this was the first time anyone got to experience it. And after the announce, this was like great, figuring everything out. It gets me very, very excited. There's a lot of Easter eggs that they have within the raid alone, but like a lot of like little things, little aspects that are really fun, and they add some flavor to Classic that wasn't necessarily there before, but still feels very classic World of Warcraft.
That's a good segue, because like, how do you guys feel about that? So obviously, for those that don't know or are living under a rock, they're gonna cap SOD at level 25. There's a 10-man raid, which is only gonna be a BFD so far. How do you guys feel about it being BFD? How do you feel about it? Not minus of how the raid felt. There's 3 bosses open, but like 7 bosses total when it launches. How do you feel about it being BFD? What was your thoughts when they first said that? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with it being BFD, and one of the main reasons being that it's in Ashenvale, and it's like a contested zone, right? So it kind of is like the first zone where like Horde and Alliance are going to be meeting, and it kind of synergizes well with like the World PvP event that they're creating there. And like Ashenvale is just, to me at least, I've been playing, you know, since the beginning of WoW, like when it was actually vanilla. Like Ashenvale and BFD are just like super iconic. And BFD actually is one of those dungeons where I feel like you either love it or you hate it. And there's some people who actually hate BFD, and I know people like that. But I think it was a good choice specifically because of the zone, because it is large, right? So it can feel like a raid, you know?
Yeah, and I think one thing that's good for them to do, I think this was actually a good choice. I was nervous about it at first, is to have some of the raids while you're leveling be reworks of places that you have experience, but it's like a completely different way of dealing with something that you have experienced. Like this first boss is Baron Aquinas, and he's usually, I believe, a horde only quest mob. And so he's a boss, and like just knowing that he's a Baron, like Baron Geddon in Molten Core, they added like some mechanics to it that are very similar, where one person gets a debuff that would be like the bomb, quote unquote, right? And they added even more mechanics, but like I like the idea as a min-maxer of them adding mechanics. It makes the game fun as well for me, but having this be like very reminiscent of like the older version of the game, right? Like you're still experiencing new raids, but it's in the old world. I think that's nice because I think it's cool because everyone's excited for like a Scarlet Monastery raid. And then from there though, then they're building out like completely new raids and new dungeons and new zones. And like, it trickles in with like familiarity with the new, and then you get fully new. I have the weirdest hopium because I'm getting really excited about it all and getting really, really hyped. And I think there's things definitely that are not necessarily all good, but I think giving us these 10-man early raids, and they're on a 3-day lockout, is going to be nice. And you don't have to know life. You don't have to know life Season of Discovery, right? Like you're level
Season of
25.
Dads.
Yeah,
Season of
exactly.
Dads, yeah.
Did you see that video?
No, I'm gonna show it right now.
Yeah. The Season of Dads one, it's going around today, and it's really, really funny. It's really good. It's made by AI, but that's what it is though. Like at least at the earlier levels, it's Season of Dads, but at the max level, I think there's going to be a lot of min-maxing. I think there's going to be a lot of like speed running and a new meta and all of this craziness that you can play with, while everyone else doesn't have to follow the meta anymore. Like no one else is forced to follow the meta.
Yeah.
Right.
I
do have a question for either one of you guys, since you both got to play at BlizzCon. With the addition of like all the new abilities and the runes and all that stuff, does it feel different than playing vanilla WoW? Because you know how, like if you're playing Wrath Classic, right, and you're playing Classic Era, they both feel very different. Does it still feel like Classic Era, or does it feel more like Wrath and the Lich King?
From me, it definitely felt more like Wrath because I was playing. I made a Warlock, as everyone knows, and I was in meta. That's like the biggest tilt. Not just was I in meta, but I'm meta with Chaos Bolt, Incinerate, and spells that you normally wouldn't get. It also felt really, some of the classes feels more retail-y. It definitely doesn't feel like the only thing that felt like, honestly, the only thing that feels about Classic Era vibes is the fact that we're in BFD and Ashenvale, and we're level 25, and we're leveling those zones. If I'm being honest, which I don't mind. I'm Classic, but I like retail too, so I don't care which as long as it's fun. My biggest thing against Classic and retail is the retail graphics don't really freak me. I like this, like, you know, it's like kind of really cartoony and like, you know, that's what I don't like. But it definitely felt more like Lich King. A lot of some of these classes feel a lot like Lich King. Mage felt a lot like a retail with all their new stuff, because they incorporate a lot of the runes are Lich King runes, or you know, future spells they get from Lich King retail. It was hard it's hard to think of Classic while I'm in meta. You know?
Right, that's what I figured, yeah.
Some classes feel way more, like way further from the Classic World of Warcraft than others. Like Rogue and Warrior both feel very similar to Classic WoW early on, especially as you're waiting on your energy. You have like Rogue DPS, you're probably like, there's a couple specs, but like if you're running the Mutilate build, it was basically that was replacing Backstab, and you're still using your finisher as Slice and Dice, and then sometimes being able to use Envenom. But if you were playing like something like Crix is saying, like a Warlock tank, that's a full rework. That's a completely different thing. And so the fights felt Classic-like, but I feel like some of the classes definitely feel different or feel like more like Wrath with the more abilities, but it still felt like the magic for me felt like it was the magic of Classic, just with abilities, right? If you're normally level 25, I was trying to explain this to someone, but if you're normally level 25, you have one ability and maybe a second one.
Yep.
And
If you're lucky.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're level 60 as a warlock, you have two things to do. One, you throw up a fucking curse of recklessness or something. That's all right. Throw that on every target, and then sit there and press Shadow Bolt, right? Like that's might be the classic feeling, but that is a shit feeling. Excuse my language, but like that's not fun. So being able to play the classic raids and hit for the classic amount of damage while now having like maybe 3 to 4 abilities you can use is so much more fun than being able to just sit there and like you have one thing to do. The only class that had an actual rotation in Classic was Warrior, and Warrior had to still fill some of their like dead space with things like Hamstring to try to proc Wind Fury, right? Most of Classic really doesn't, like you realize when you're raiding, you really don't have that much to do. Most of Classic is like open world and experiencing things, but in raids, there's very few abilities you get to utilize. So I think this really lends itself to raids will be a lot more fun. The PvP is going to be off the fucking wall. It's going to be wild. But your actual experience playing the game is going to be more fun because it's a lot more interactive.
Yeah, Warlock's got like a rework, complete rework. There's nothing that you're doing this time. Like you're still putting up curse, but like, it was quite literally like a complete class rework, which obviously
Thank
like.
Gosh, you would never want to do that.
Mage got a good rework too. Like there's a couple. I know there's some classes that feel like they didn't change much, but Warlock definitely probably changed the most out of everything. It's like it's completely backwards. Even your Shadow Bolt spits 5 Shadow Bolts out instead of 1. Like there's the only thing that you do the same is fucking put a curse up, and corruption is the same. Everything else has changed. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
My mind's blown on it, to be honest.
Look at exactly what Agron just said. He said, I can tell from starting from level 1, it's a slow burn to get to the point where Crix you're describing. And even then, outside in the world, it feels very classic. Obviously, biased opinion, but I felt that too. It's like, we're level 25. And I was saying this earlier, is like, the time gating is really good because it trickles us down to like still feeling like the very classic world, whilst also not overwhelming us with these new abilities. But on top of that, the magic, I think, this is like gonna be something that I'm getting way too stoked on, is like I always like finding new things, and we're gonna like be like, is that little rock over there, is that new? And you click on it and it turns into like a fucking octopus or something. You know? And then that drops like a rune, and it's like a raid boss out randomly in the open world that spawns once every like 3rd blue moon or something.
It's gonna be addicting finding these runes.
Yeah.
Because this is the hype of this entire season is, we already know we're speed levelers. We're hitting that's 8-10 hour done leveling, right? And then we're gonna speed run, we're gonna speed level, we're gonna clear the raid, and then just I know all 3 of us in here and more people in chat are gonna just, I'm not sleeping until I find like meta, like all my runes. Obviously I can't say all the runes because I don't know, and I think that's what's the best part of it is you don't know how long it takes to find all the runes, which is a very good. I have a good question for you guys. I'm going to answer it first, though. How long do you think it's going to take to unlock all the runes? I hope it's like, I hope to God all the runes are not found in like a day or 2. I hope it's like a week and we're like, I finally found it. I feel like it's not going to be because of the internet, but like, you know.
Realistically, I think it's going to be a few days, 2 or 3 days. And then within 7 days, there will be like guides and add-ons and things for every single one. Just because information spreads so fast, you know, like the second one rune is found, that's just permanently like everyone is going to know that now.
The interesting thing is I was trying to plan this with some of the guys that when we did the Hardcore All-Stars tournament, but if you do like if we can put together a dueling tournament, but like 2 or 3 days into the actual launch, because people don't have all of the runes. So if people hoard or hide where they found these runes early on to have some sort of competitive advantage in something, but right after that, yes, it's all going to be shared. There's going to be a billion guides. We're all going to make videos on it. Wowhead is going to data mine every single thing, and then the community is going to be like, no, I never want to see that. And then they're going to look and read the guide on the data mining anyways. Savages. Please, I hope things, I'm personally really excited for the idea of a genuine discovery, like finding things out and then coming in to like theory crafting. So once we get like where we find all the runes, and once we find a bunch of like secret things, and I think there's gonna be secrets, like there's a secret apparently in Dragonflight that I think was discovered like a month or less than a month ago, that was like a mount or something that was in the game since launch, and it was like there's all these like little puzzles that could happen, and I think that's an exciting thing for them to be able to do. But then how this plays out together in raiding situations or in PvP, it's none of it is like solved, and Classic is like one of the most solved games of all time. People have been playing this exact version of the game for 20 plus years, so now it's all different, and it's like, how can we do the most out of this? How can we maybe not even just min-max it, but like, how can I have the most fun? You won't be forced to pigeonhole into something. Hopefully I'll make guides, and then hopefully your guild won't force you to play that like Unholy DK or something. Sorry if you didn't want to play Unholy DK and Wrath, but I think there's a lot of excitement in it, and I think it for me, it felt, from playing it, it still felt very Classic. And that was the biggest fear, and I think that's everyone's biggest fear.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, definitely.
I think that the smartest thing in the world that they did was no PTR, no beta. That was even more smart. When they said, here's Season Discovery, and they started talking about it, and all of a sudden he closed with no PTR beta November 30th. Look at that shit, my opinion. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
It's like you'll play it at the end of this month.
Yeah, because like you get torn, because it's like we make content, so it's like all three of us would be like, yeah, dude, if there was, we'd be no-lifing it, and then there's no Discovery. But like, I like that there's none. It's gonna be dope. Because instead of that, it's all frantically, people are trying to make content on stuff we don't know. No, all three of us don't. We're just like speculating or big theory crafting or what we. I think, and just like from all the data mine thing from Wowhead, I think Blizzard's just letting people know what they want to know, and that's not even gonna change. I think there's everything that's in data mine is gonna be like, all right, well, let's change this up. It's not everything. Like having the other slots, we already knew that was gonna happen, right? But I don't know. I don't think the data mine's always gonna be true, because they can definitely swap some shit up. Like if people find too much stuff out, they can be like, you know what? Let's do
I
this.
hope they leave
Let's do this.
Easter eggs in the,
yeah,
in
like
the data mining too.
Yeah, I don't want everything to be discovered right away. Like I don't want everything in the world to be discovered right away. I just hope that, back to that topic, I just hope that it takes a while to get some runes. I know there's a chance that it's day 3 and everybody found them all, but between people, internet and videos and whatever, I honestly think it's gonna be found quick. I just hope it's not. I think that's gonna be the excitement of it. This first week of seasons is probably gonna be the most fun I think a lot of us have had playing World of Warcraft, even more than like Classic launch, TBC. I'm more excited for this than the TBC launch. I'm a TBC Andy. Like the Lich King launch, Kata coming up. For those who are excited about Kata, this is like different. This is next level. This is a change on a game that we've been playing for 15,000 years. You know?
Yeah. And I think that the mass amount of discovery that's going to go on, and like combine that with what Sarth was saying, is that it still has that like vanilla like Classic magic. You're right. Like it's going to be the most fun, and I've played thousands of hours of Warcraft this year. And it's going to be the most fun that I know I'm going to have had, rolling around with all your friends. Like even after you're going to hit 25 so fast, right? You're going to do the raid. Now you have 3 days. You're going to scour the world for all of your runes. While you're doing that, you can do Warsong Gulch. You're going to be world PvPing. Like I said before. Yeah, and if I'm playing Ret Pally, I'm finding some random feral to just run around with me. And it's going to be an absolute blast. Like I really can't wait for it. I'm hyped.
I meant to ask this in the beginning. What are you maining, Hammer?
So I'm usually a Lock fanboy.
Yes, good answer.
I'm
But
a Lock fanboy, but there's just
I knew there was a but.
Yeah, there's part of me
Traitor!
that really. I know. I kind of want to try Ret Pally, but I don't know. It's gonna be a game time decision.
Yeah, you're really on Paladin, dog. You are on Ret Pally's nuts. Yeah, I know, but god damn.
It's insane, man.
We should talk about this after you say who you're maining.
We should, because I don't know a lot about Paladin, so maybe you can break it down for me.
There's some runes that literally I think need to be reined into reality, because they are in the realm of that's crazy, and that'll be crazier at higher levels, but like it's so strong. There's a few classes in specific, but like there's a very few runes. But Crix, I'm assuming you're gonna be playing a Warlock main.
I'm going Warlock Mage and then another Warlock, yeah. I want a tank, a DPS, Warlock, obviously, because you can't do both. I'm doing DPS with our guild, with the Ompi guild. You won't let me tank. The typical like tanks. And then I'm doing a community guild on the Lion side where I'll just tank. And then I want a mage, not a healer.
I don't. tanking in BFDs, it should be pretty easy anyways.
I know, it's just I want to do it long term. It'd be fun. It's Ompy.
Yeah.
You can't talk Ompy into doing something he doesn't want to do. You know that.
Or something that's like very suboptimal. Just,
Yeah, you're not gonna talk Ompy into doing anything that he does not want to do. Yeah. And he's also a main tank too, so like, what you can't, you know what I mean? It makes sense.
he's gonna have to run like all of the tanks, like literally every one of the fights, or especially towards the higher levels, there's gonna be so much variation in which tanks are better for which situations. Like Warlock tank is looking to be. Warlock and Shaman tank are probably going to be the strongest for dungeons and trash. And there's some bosses, like especially if there's like a little bit of ads, they could be like the best. Rogue tanks can like hit like 102% evasion or avoidance at level 60 without other runes being added, which is like, that's gonna end up being reined in. But like rogue tanks on single target bosses that are melee bosses, it's just like they're just not taking any damage.
Warlock tanks aren't going to be that good at AoE stuff though. They don't have anything to help. They have a shadow cleave that does like no damage. It doesn't cause threat, and their taunt is just a single target. So we have no way to pull. If you AoE and pull threat, I can't get it back. I got one taunt every 10 seconds. Besides a 10-minuter, but that's it. It's gonna be made, I think, for single
Every
target
single
tanking.
global you can Searing Pain though.
Yeah, but like, spread Searing Pain on 5 people. The most you can do is like,
Well, not 5.
well, say you, yeah, but you're in a dungeon. So say you're in a dungeon and you're pulling 3 to 4 or 5 mobs. You're not going to be able to. It's going to be rough trying to hold that aggro with people unless people are not pumping. I don't think the Warlock tanks were made. They will be able to do dungeons, but in a raid, I don't think they were made to sit there and hold 4 or 5 mobs with AoE threat. It's more of a single target thing. Yeah, that's what, until later. I think it's a market for later for like a Hellfire rune or something with emo aura. You notice there's no emo aura in the game, or like something like that. That's the big fire thing from Lich King. Yeah, the big aura. That's what they're known for. Lich King's the big aura. I think that'll come later, but we're not that great at AoE threat right now.
So you're saying
they're
Shadow
all-
Cleave doesn't do
It doesn't do that good. It does like your normal threat. It doesn't. It's not like a Searing Pain. It's Shadow Cleave is just Shadow Bolt turned into a melee. So the most that you can do with it is like take Everlasting Affliction rune, and then you can have corruptions up on people, and Shadow Cleave that refresh the corruptions. So you can have corruptions rolling on them. But if you do that, you can't take Lake of Fire, and you need Lake of Fire because that's boosting your fire damage. So in order for you to keep threat, you have to run in or charge on one. You taunt whenever you need it with 10-second taunt, and you're just hoping nobody pulls off one Searing Pain, and you're tab Searing Pain, and you're mousing over however you're doing it. You would just use any of the other tanks to be able to do trad. Like there's other tanks that'll be better at AoE tanking than a Warlock would be.
Right.
Yeah, but each one of those hits with your cleave is 100% extra threat on a normal Shadow Bolt, right?
No, the cleave is not extra threat. The cleave is just normal.
Metamorphosis gives you 100%.
Oh yeah, you're talking about the Metamorphosis one, yeah. Yeah, but it's really not that. The cleave itself, people were already pulling from that at the beta, in the beta when we were doing it when I was cleaving.
Yeah, but you're always gonna pull right away. Like if you're DPSing right away, right? Like you're always like no tank. Literally no tank can, I mean, maybe the Shaman one that has the frontal cone, but no tank can hold aggro right away in Classic. That's like literally like the essence, you're describing an essence of tanking in Classic. That's like perfect.
Yeah, that's why I said people are just going to have to not DPS even more. I feel like I don't think Warlock's going to be the best AoE tanks. I think you just use another tank that could do it better.
But you can consistently build that threat very quickly, right? So like you could run in and you have the Searing Pains for any of the targets that you're low on threat on, but you're consistently in every global able to hit 3 targets? Through Shadow Cleave?
That's not every global. There's a cooldown on it. Yeah, cooldown. There's a cooldown on cleave. There's a cooldown on everything besides Searing Pain. You'd have to tab or mouse over for Searing Pain. You could run in.
What's the cooldown on your new?
It's like 6 seconds, and then your taunt is 10 seconds. So you can't Shadow Cleave.
Yeah, but
that's the problem.
Easy Shadow Cleave, and then you just start tapping Searing Paining.
Yeah, but imagine the threat on that. People are going to still rip off that unless you're telling people, you know how hard it is in a raid to be like, hey, stop DPS for a whole 5 seconds, let me get it. You know how it is. And these are level 25 raids where everyone's going to be overpowered with runes.
Yeah, but you take no damage. You could rip the threat on that, but like you'll have a targeted in raids, right? Okay. Just bear with me. Let's say we're in a level 60 raid with no new runes other than what we have right now. Your Warlock tank would go and pick up like 6 mobs or something over in this corner, and he would build threat while your warrior tank or whatever grabs 1 mob right here. Everyone kills the skull as you usually do, and then you start AoEing down everything, right? Because every class seems to get some sort of AoE. Also, by that time, everyone's gonna have most likely a lot stronger AoE and AoE threat, but like it's very reminiscent of like that's a really, like, that's something that everyone's missing. Even paladins with consecrate was so slow for building threat. Paladins were obviously literally like not an actual tank in classic, and if you ran one, they could not generate threat at all. But now they get a ton more threat from everything with their new with their Hand of Seal of Reckoning rune, and that giving you 80% more threat gen from Righteous Fury being up. It's like,
I'm saying you just use one of those tanks or a Feral or something over a Warlock tank, right?
Yeah.
Would you? That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that you can't tank. I know what I'm talking about Warlocks. I'm not saying you can't tank AoE. I'm just saying there's literally a couple other tanks that could. Even the Shamans could AoE tank better than the Warlock can. There's this other thing. You could just let the Warlock do AoE DPS and have something else tank those mobs. Because AoE DPS from Warlock's gonna be out of this fucking world. In comparison to probably almost every fucking class besides I think mages are gonna slap. Because the Rain of Fire Hellfire combination with Incinerate is gonna be, but it's absolutely crazy. You don't even use like a fire, you use it just to put the tick down, and then you run in Hellfire with Incinerate opening first. It's gonna be absolutely nut hole AoE damage. So you would have the Feral, the Paladin, like you said, or even the Shaman tank do AoE while your Warlock just absolutely slaps DPS. I mean AoE DPS. In my opinion, that's what I think. That's what I would like. It's gonna be crazy damage for the AoE on a Warlock.
Yeah, that completely makes sense to me. I'm just, I haven't played like you guys did, but I thought for sure after seeing like the Shadow Cleave ability and the 100% threat on meta, I was like, oh wow, Locks are gonna be able to tank trash pretty easily. But I guess they are. I guess what you're saying is there's better.
I'm just saying.
We're gonna. I'm not saying they're not gonna be able to. I'm just saying there's better tanks for it.
That spell is
Yeah, Shaman.
And Feral and Paladin, you just said, right? Paladins are gonna be. You don't think Paladins will be able to tank trash? Really well.
Paladin, your threat build on trash is a lot like every other pull would be great, or if you pull really big, right? But like if you look at BFD, the pulls were like 2 to 5 mobs each pull. So eventually, yes, but I mean it doesn't really matter. You'll usually probably run one main tank and one like cleave tank in most of these raids. And in all honesty, you could run with any of the tank combinations at level 25. The raids like aren't punishing, but like we don't really know. It's just like literally if you're looking at like the Warlock stuff, like you could build around that so well for some of the higher level things. At 25, everything is relatively very easy. It's just dodge mechanics. There's finally mechanics, which is exciting to me at level 25 because instead of, like I mentioned earlier, is like you would have literally one button to do and then the boss just dies, right? Like if we did any dungeons, you don't even know what bosses do in dungeons usually, right?
Until hardcore came around, then you're like, you know what, let's kind of find out. Even in hardcore in the dungeons, actually, yeah, you're still just kind of like just plowing through it without worried about mechanics.
Yeah, even in hardcore raids, and like I know the mechanics of most mobs in raids, like most, because there's like one thing that a mob could do to kill you, and if you didn't do hardcore, like you didn't care about that much. But in speedruns, like that one thing was something to be worried about, and you would always have to be cautious because losing your world buffs was crazy. But we're getting world buffs back, so that's.
Oh yeah.
How do you like, good topic, how do you like the world buff at the end of the BFD? You want to go over that?
Yeah.
You remember what it's called? I can look it up real quick.